Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, we talk about, and at least I've tried to talk about, fishes, and this is a possessive S at the end of fish that I'm talking about, ability, and they're using their natural instincts in why this is all important that we understand this. In other words, they have the same senses that we do, but in many cases, those senses are increased. One thing I can tell you is that fish can see more colors than we can. They're sort of like a hummingbird, where they can see ultraviolet shades that we wouldn't even be aware of, but might make a difference of the nutrients that are in whatever they're looking to eat to survive. So when we think that color doesn't matter, and I've done many shows where we joked about it, because a lot of anglers think it's not important. They'll hit anything. They'll hit any color. Well, no. And let me tell you something very specific. And this relates to trout, but it could relate to anything. But in the world where trout live, a lot of their food is very tiny flies and nymphs, and so tiny that they would just be dots to us, dots on our hand. Fishermen that use these tiny, tiny baits have to use tiny, tiny hooks. And you'd think, how can a hook ever hold in a fish like these? But it can. But the importance here is when trout get keyed in to a hatch of flies, and that hatch may be tiny, tiny little flies that just look like little midges or bugs to us, but they know every color that would be in that fly. And at that point, that's what they want. That's what they're keyed into eating. So if you're a fly fisherman and you throw one of 1,000 other type of patterns out there, they'll ignore it during one of these feeding frenzies that they go on in a hatch. That's what it's called, matching the hatch. Tying a fly that will have the exact same color variances as what these fish are feeding on. So if they can be that particular, it's something that we should be aware of, that they're going to be and can be that particular with anything that they eat. And the colors make a huge difference. The other thing that my buddy Rocky had told me a couple weeks ago, he said that right now, the landlocked or Atlantic salmon in Lake Ontario are staging up near the creeks and near the tributaries that enter in, like the Salmon River or Little Sandy Creek or so forth. And what are they doing? They're starting to smell. They're starting to smell the residue of all the steelhead spawning up in there. And so it means there's going to be food for them. But they can smell it. They can smell it in the water way downstream. So what does that tell you? They have a great sense of smell. And a lot of other fish too, they depend on their sense of smell over everything else, because maybe they live in dirty water and they can't see things as well. Fish hear in a way very similar to birds. Years and years ago, I did studies on this, and I found that we talk about the lateral line that goes through fish. That's a line on their side that sounds, vibrations come in. They pick them up on their body through their lateral line, which transfers that input up into their head, where we would think their ears are, and that's processed by their brain, just as we process the sounds that we hear, our voices being spoken. So the point of this is, I think a lot of times we minimize the impact of choosing the right color, having something that might smell in a way that would draw the fish in, something that will appeal to their taking in of vibrations that become their ears, that's what they hear. And so that's why all the different things we talk about that you can use sort of try to capitalize on one of their senses. And I think this is really important. And as I've thought about this, let me bring one other thought into you right now, because I think this is important. People, all these tournament anglers that are some of our finest fishermen in the world, that come up here and they'll get up on stage and they'll start talking about things that made them successful. Well, a lot of it's going to be hype. A lot of it's going to be words that will benefit their sponsors, because that's how they get to do this. But the other thing that they say is they love it on the St. Lawrence River when it's bright sun. The bright sun makes the smallmouth bite. Well, why would it do that? Because with the water clarity that we have, and when the sun shines, it's going to make it even more clear, and the smallmouths depend on eyesight. That's what triggers their feeding. And so when it's sunny out, you catch more fish. They bite more. It very simply put. Now let's go to the other extreme. You have walleyes that are another one of our favorite fish up here. Walleyes are completely different. They don't like it when it gets bright. It hurts their eyes. Now, I don't know. I don't know how they feel. But their eyes are so sensitive that they tend to try to go deeper, and they feed primarily either after dark or in cloudy periods. When I was a kid in school, and I all day long in school, I couldn't wait till I got on the school bus and got home that I could get out on the water and fish for trout. And as I'd look out the window, when I saw it was overcast or slightly raining, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till the bus comes, because this is when the trout are gonna. The overcast conditions often are the best for other species. But my point is understanding the role that the senses of fish play in their daily habits can help us to be a better fisherman. As simple as that. Whether we're referring to sight, sound, taste, smell, all of these things are critical, and they affect us, and they're certainly going to affect fish. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.